Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for March 7th through 13th. This week I read 2 things, I watched 6 shows, I watched 6 movies, and I listened to 2 books. It's been a while since I watched so much that I don't even feel like talking about it. The last time that I can remember I was away at a family vacation and there were just kind of things on around me at all times, so I saw things like hockey and kids programs and all of these things that I just didn't care to talk about, so I just kind of let them appear on the screen. And it was a lot. It was so many things. I think that I might end up doing something sort of similar with this one because I only have a couple of things to say about a couple of the things that I watched this week. Everything else I'll put on the screen in some way and I'll put it down below in case you want to discuss it with me in the comments. First this week I finished Killing Jericho by Will Harker. This is the first in a queer detective series. When we meet Scott Jericho, he's recently gotten out of jail. He was in jail because he used to be a police officer who beat the crap out of a person who killed some children. Obviously he shouldn't have done that. The guy ended up walking free because of it and he went to jail. He's now currently living where his father lives and not really dealing with it all too well, and where his father lives is also where his father lived when he was growing up. His father is a traveling showman. This means that yes, before he grew up and decided to go away to university, he lived in a traveling carnival. The interesting thing about the representation in this book is not only is the author also queer, he also had a father who was a traveling showman. This had a lot of elements that I liked, and it is not for the faint of heart because it does get very, very bloody while he's handed this case to solve. It turns out 150 years ago, 5 people in his family's carnival died in this very small town, and now somebody is recreating their deaths, but recreating them on people that are seemingly unconnected, and not the method of their death, but just also how they lived, because the 5 people that died were circus freaks. That's the only time I'm going to call them that because I feel super uncomfortable saying that. There was a small, almost throwaway line in this book as well, talking about how most people think that people that live in the circus were treated badly and that type of thing, but we were actually a family, and it's fine if these people actually got along and respected all of the people with differences that made up this part of the carnival, but I would not want to negate the horrible conditions that have been documented for people who have worked in circuses that have bodily differences. The whole reason that Scott was a great detective is as a showman you learn to kind of size people up as you see them, so you get very, very observant and you notice things that other people wouldn't, and I really like that the author made that his lore. I really enjoyed that aspect of this book. This book also has a sequel that came out this month, and I will be reading it during the Queer Weekend, which is the last weekend of this month, which also overlaps with the sequel-a-thon, so I did that on purpose. I'll be reading a queer sequel during sequel-a-thon and the Queer Weekend. The other thing I read this week is a prequel novella to Killing Jericho, which is Killing Jack. It probably took me way too long to figure out what was going on in this one. It is very, very short, but we follow this character who has just killed somebody and you kind of figure out why throughout the very short story. I probably should have figured it out based on the title and the time frame. It took me a moment. This one takes place in 1888. It follows Tom Jericho, so an ancestor of Scott Jericho, as he murders somebody who has been murdering other people, and it's in London, so you might be able to figure out who this person is, although of course we don't really know who this person was. He is given like I think a fake name in here because I don't know that much about it. I just know that we never really knew who this killer was. It's quick, it's fun, it was worth signing up for the newsletter just to read this little novella. On to the shows I watched this week. They will all be listed down below. I have a couple of things to say about a couple of them, but I'm not going to talk about all of them. The first thing I watched this week was The Great North. I watched the first 5 episodes because that's all that exists. This is about a family that lives in Alaska. The father is played by Nick Offerman. There's some other great voice actors in here. Alanis Morissette plays herself as the teenage daughter's imaginary best friend, who is also an Aurora Borealis. It's really funny, it's animated. I think that you might enjoy it if you like comedy. The family is also super supportive of each other and I love that. I also watched all of The Curious Creations of Christine McConnell, which is about this woman who lives in this scary mansion and she has all of these friends, like this cat who was buried with the pharaohs and this raccoon that she put back together and reanimated. There's also something that lives in her fridge named Melly. There's a creature that lives in her basement. In the very first episode, a new creature comes to the house and is welcomed by her, but not so much welcomed welcomed by the other people, and the other people are played by puppets. In addition to all of that, because that is the sitcom premise of it, this is also a cooking show, so she shows you how she makes all these ridiculous creations, and then occasionally she also makes other things for around the house, such as at one point she made these really cool candles, she made a dress for this date she was going to go on with this guy who is totally a serial killer. This was just hokey and weird and spoopy and wonderful, and I definitely wanted to mention this one out of everything because it's great. And here are the other 4 things I watched this week. If you would like to discuss them with me, let me know down in the comments below. I'm going to see if I can talk about all of the 6 movies in one take. Probably not, because I rely heavily on editing because I don't know how to use words half the time, but here we go. Isn't It Romantic was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that one. We rewatched Idiocracy, which is not generally my thing because it's making fun of people and their intelligence, and it has some problems and it doesn't really hold up super well, but also at certain points you're just like, why? Also the cast was kind of fun. We also watched Color Out of Space, which is the remake of an H.P. Lovecraft book, or short story maybe, it's one of those things, and this was unenjoyable. It had some interesting things to do with the horror sci-fi genre, but overall we were just like, oh, how has this movie still got an hour left? Why are we watching this? Because Chad picked that, I picked watching The Prom, which is wonderful. It's made by the same guy who created Glee, so it itself is a musical, but it centers these Broadway actors who finds out there's this lesbian in one of the other states that wants to take her girlfriend to prom, and instead they just canceled prom because they can't just be discriminatory to this one person. This was a lot of fun, star-studded cast. If you like musicals, you're going to like this movie. We also watched a movie from the 80s that I didn't even know existed called My Stepmom is an Alien, and the best thing I can get out of this is we see baby Willow and baby Oz. That's all I can really take away from this movie. Everything else, there was so many cringy elements. Finally, we also watched a Goofy movie, which was just heartwarming. I haven't seen this since I was a kid. I definitely didn't get that all in one take, but I did not too bad a job. On to the books I listened to. The first one is called Weather by Jenny Offill. This is a very short book, especially if you're listening to it as an audiobook, as it's about 3 or 3.5 hours. And that's because this is very disjointed vignettes about the life of this woman who works, has a husband, has a child, but then also has this mentor that comes back into her life, and she starts working for the mentor answering her emails. And she's doing that because her mentor has this job where she travels around and talks about climate change, and she gets a lot of emails on the subject, some from people who legitimately just want to know more, and some people who are conspiracy theorists or have some other issues, and it's now her job to deal with these on top of her other job and her husband and her child. I can't remember exactly what I said, so I'm gonna look it up on Goodreads. I said, I mean, if you like short fiction that gives you anxiety about the state of the world and will make you want to take up survivalist practices, this is the novel for you. So there's that. She spends a lot of time worrying about her child and like if they're going to have to move to a better climate because of the way that things are progressing and what it's even going to look like when he is an adult, and I got a lot of anxiety just listening to this book. So if you're into that, here you go, some climate fiction for you. Next I listened to You Had Me at Hola by Alexis. Daria. This is about a woman who works as a soap opera actress, and she's recently made it onto a streaming services version of a telenovela that is brought to the North American market, so it's bilingual. She's not really bilingual. Her family speaks Spanish, so she knows a little bit of it, but she's kind of rusty on it. And this is a huge break for her because she is the main character in this TV show, and if the first 8 episodes go great, they might get picked up for more seasons. Super last minute she finds out that her co-star is actually being replaced because the old guy actually ended up breaking an arm or something like that and can't be in the show anymore. So he is being replaced by this man who she has heard of before because he is on all of the telenovelas. He is a huge name. In fact, her grandmother absolutely loves this guy. So before she even meets him, her cousins hatch a plan for her to bring him to her grandmother's 80th birthday, which is coming up soon. Because obviously you're gonna be the favorite grandchild if you can do that. She's also recently had a very public breakup, so she wants to focus on her career and not get sidetracked by any kind of love interest type of thing. And then of course she meets him, and then of course things go a little sideways from there. On his side of things, he's always wanted to break into movies, and he's hoping that this show will transition him from just being in telenovelas to being in a more mainstream version of television program into the movies. He is also very heavily guarded, and this is something something that people know about him, but they don't know why. The reason why is 8 years ago, he had a son with a co-star. She's not in their life anymore. She basically was like, here's the kid, I did my job, I'm going back to working, tell nobody that this is my kid. When his son was very, very young, somebody tried to break into his house, and now he's been hiding his family ever since. I really liked this. Both leads had really compelling backstories. I really enjoyed seeing how they were working on the television program together and all these different elements that came together, such as we would see these moments where they were filming certain scenes. Also, this production had an intimacy coordinator, and I thought that that whole aspect was brilliant. This is somebody who comes in, makes sure that the people that are going to be in intimate scenes together communicate. If there's anything that they don't want to happen, then it doesn't, and then they choreograph how those types of scenes are going to go, not only so how it reads on camera, but so that the people in the scene are comfortable every step of the way. And I just loved that, because it's definitely not my experience with the few kisses I've had to do throughout theater. Usually in situations like that, it's just like, okay, those are your lines and now kiss, and you're like, but how? And did this person eat garlic earlier? And I thought that this book was a lot of fun, and I would highly recommend it. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below, as well as the link to my PayPal and my Amazon wishlist in case you would like to buy me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!